Awesome. First of all, thank you so much for the kind invitation to present at IBC Istanbul. Quick intro, I'm Kydo. I'm the protocol researcher at Eigenlayer. And today I'm going to be talking about you could have invented Eigenlayer. All right. Also, before I start, I want to get a quick sense on who have heard of Eigenlayer. Wow. We're so popular. All right. Who have heard about restaking? Perfect. This is a great crowd. I will, really look forward to this talk. All right. So first question: what is Eigenlayer? Show of hand if you think Eigenlayer is A. Which one looks more familiar? Come on, guys. A. Only these hands. All right. Some people are shy. How many people think Eigenlayer is B? No one. Whoa. We have a few hands. Very impressed. Okay. By the end of the talk, the goal is that when you see this diagram, you're gonna relate that with Eigenlayer, and I hope at the end you're going to understand why the system is designed this way to achieve what we aim to achieve. So a few goals here. First, we're trying to understand exactly what the problem Eigenlayer is trying to solve. Then we're going to think about, okay, given this problem, what are the requirements we need to solve or alleviate this problem? Next, we're going to be thinking about, okay, we have these requirements. What is the MVP to solve or satisfy each requirement? And lastly, we're going to think about, okay, we have this MVP. How do we make it into a product developers, users, everyone can interact with? All right. First thing is the problem statement. Bootstrapping any decentralized infrastructure is difficult. I don't need to talk too much about it. I think presenting it to the Cosmos crowd, everyone understands the difficulty of bootstrapping any sort of system that is decentralized and involve a lot of different nodes. So why is it really hard? Sorry for the really small font. I didn't realize I have such a massive screen. So there are a few reasons. The first one is, decentralization always requires consensus. Why you need consensus? Because you have different nodes that need to talk to each other and reach agreement on the state. So consensus mechanisms are generally a very hard topic, and we normally have three kinds of consensus mechanism. Proof of authority, which is very similar to a multi-sig. It is a great way to bootstrap an initial network, but it's very, very centralized and not permissionless. Proof of work is great for decentralization, but it costs a lot of wasteful energy. Lastly, I think is what a lot of people opt into, which is proof of stake. The stake part, it was supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the PDF just made it all in one. So don't try to read it. Just listen to me. Otherwise, it's going to be really overwhelming. So the stake in the proof of stake is really hard. That's sort of the observation we've made. Why is it really hard? The first one is because stake is sort of a capital thing, right? Whenever you have someone who's developing some software who are general developers, on the other side, you have some capital contributors who are sort of the stakers. Connecting them requires a platform, or at least them being aware that each other exists. But currently, this platform, we don't think exists. Second is, for all the proof of stake chains now, whenever for anyone to want to contribute economic security to that chain, you need to hold their native token. However, all these native tokens are highly volatile, right? Even Bitcoin can drop 50% in a few months. A lot of these native tokens can drop 90 to 99%. So whenever users want to secure a network, they hold a large inventory risk because they're buying that token. And the third problem is the native staking yield problem, which is if I don't buy your token and I just bought ETH or Atom, I have some other staking yield. So if I buy your other native token, for whatever your proof of stake chain is, you might, you have to give me much higher yield to compensate for the, opportunity cost I'm missing. And lastly is the fragmentation of security problem that I'm going to touch on a little bit later. All right, first, the problem of, I think I already talked about this. All right, so this is probably one thing I want to touch on, which is why, the second and third problem are really, really bad. So the second problem is you have to hold this native token. And the third one is you have to have much more issuance to compensate for users' opportunity costs. So you have to issue more token, people sell more for your token, you need to issue more, and you have sort of the dice spiral for a lot of the proof-of-stake network that we really actually observed in the Luna collapse, where the price of the native token dropped to close to zero, and the consensus actually came to a halt. The last part I want to touch on is on the fragmentation of security problem. So this is using Ethereum example, but it's very, very true for a lot of systems today. Which, let's say you build an app, dApp, whether that lives on Ethereum, whether that's a Cosmos native chain, you relies on different AVSs. Here, AVS, you can just think about them as a different proof-of-stake network. If my dApp depends on Ethereum, which has 10 billion economic security, and each of these 3 different AVSs that have 1 billion, the cost of corruption to corrupt my dApp is the lowest of the 4. So I don't need to, this fragmentation of security problem really weakens any dApp that builds on the modular stack. On the other hand, if we use Eigenlayer, let's say, instead of everyone contributing security to your individual AVS or infrastructure or your own proof-of-stake network, let's all provide security in a shared manner. And in this way, to compromise my dApp, the cost of corruption is no longer 1 billion, but it's going to be 13 billion, right? 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So now we've talked about the 4 problems. What are the requirements we need to solve these problems? First is we need a platform connecting the stakers with the developers. Second is the problem of holding native token. Third one is opportunity cost. And lastly is fragmentation of security. All right, so how do we solve it? First, we build a platform. I'm going to talk about what that platform is, what that platform entails. Right now, it probably sounds a little bit abstract to most of us. The second one is, it would be better if the staker can provide economic security using any token. Right? So this inventory problem is going to be alleviated. The third one is, it will be, instead of, missing the opportunity cost, can we increase capital efficiency by allowing restaking, by using the same capital to secure different things, within the safety parameter. And lastly is, instead of fragmenting the economic security of different system, can we pool security together? So these are basically the requirements we're trying to solve in the minimum viable product or protocol of Eigenlayer. All right, let's build out this MVP. First, what is this platform connecting the stakers with the infrastructure builders? So here we have a very basic diagram explaining proof of stake. In this abstraction, it goes as the following. So you have the staker provide some stake to the protocol. The developer writes the protocol, right? Designs it, writes the code, and here the stakers will also be running the protocol. And the protocol promises some end result to the user. And there are a few users here. For Oracle, if you think about the protocol as being an Oracle, the user might be a smart contract living on Ethereum or Cosmos consuming some price feed. And the promise the Oracle is making to the user is going to be, hey, as long as the majority of us are honest, your price feed are going to be accurate within some certain bound. If you're a proof of stake protocol, maybe your end user is whoever submitted a transaction, and the promise you make to them is, hey, this is my finality guarantee, or hey, this is the liveness guarantee that your transaction will be included at one point. So this is a very general abstraction of what proof of stake protocol is. And on top of this, other than just making a promise from the protocol to the user, we also generally have a slashing condition. That is, if this promise the protocol made to the user is broken, whether it's liveness or it's safety, anything that the protocol promised and is violated, the staker are being slashed, right? So in this design, you can sort of see the abstraction I'm trying to go for here. The developers are designing these commitments, right, these protocols. The stakers are making these commitments by providing capital to it. And lastly, the protocol itself enforces these statements. So at the end of the day, you actually just need 2 components, right? You need the ability for the you need the ability for the developers to write commitments, and you need the ability to enforce a commitment. If we abstract that away, it's basically, you have to be able to write some code, some logic, and at the same time, be able to call some function to enforce this commitment if it's violated. What is the best way to do that? we came from the Ethereum ecosystem. We felt Ethereum is the best way to build this platform on. So by making a commitment, you can do that by writing a smart contract. And how do you enforce that commitment? You can simply call a smart contract call through a function call. And this is actually the simplest MVP you can do with Eigenlayer, where the staker deposits some capital into the token pool. And the token pool has some commitment logic baked inside of it. And this would be the API look like. On the top, you just have a balance tracking. People can stake, people can withdraw. And if anyone violates, anyone can call this slash function, given some arbitrary proof. It could be double signing. It could be, hey, your vote is outside the boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. The abstraction here is basically you have the ability to stake, you have the ability to withdraw, and you have the ability to slash. And what that satisfies is our first requirement for Eigenlayer, a platform between stakers and developers. Since we're on Ethereum, we actually also cross out the second one because we can deposit any ERC20 tokens or any kind of token into the system to be the backbone of the economic security. The third one, we're going to, for simplicity and time purpose, we're just going to assume we're going to use ETH or Rocket Boot ETH for now so that we are exposed to the Ethereum underlying yield. At the same time, you're providing economic security to other things. Lastly, we still face this fragmentation of liquidity of a security problem. The staker here is only staking into one pool, right? What if the staker wants to secure many different applications at the same time? It has to deposit in different pools. It will be very, very difficult. However, one way we can do this is by moving away the slashing function into another component. We're just going to call it slashers. And this is what the API will look like. On the token pool part, instead of having a slasher function, you have the enroll function. Enrolling into a slasher just means you give that slasher the ability to slash you. And the slasher side is whatever with the old slasher function we have, which is gives anyone the ability to slash you given some proof are there. And in this design, whenever you're withdrawing, first we're going to basically check the staker, hey, which slasher are you enrolled in? And if you're already slashing those slashers. Is there any questions? I want to take a quick pause here. You can speak louder. I'll repeat the question. Or let's wait for the mic.
Test.
Test. So when we're talking about these tokens, are these tokens supposed to be tokens that are already used in some kind of staking mechanism or securing mechanism for other chains, or do you really mean like any token is fine? And in that case, how would that work exactly?
Yeah, well, what do you think? What do you think the answer is to that question?
I don't know. It could be either, I think, somehow.
You could be any token, right? This is
Right.
Ethereum. You can program in whatever way you want. So it's actually whatever token you want. But the reason I mentioned Steve is because you had the opportunity cost problem, right? Therefore, I want not just stake to your protocol or provide economic security to your protocol. I also want to be exposed to a 4%, 5% yield Ethereum provides, right? So it's a choice that I can make. But the design-wise is totally open.
Right. So if I were to let's say put in USDC and
you can totally
I
put in
would be
USDC.
able to get slashed, and would they also get the rewards as well?
What do you mean by rewards?
Yeah, exactly. I guess some kind of staking rewards from all this things secured by the token pool.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's right. It's the same problem, right? Where you provide economic security, you get something in return. Perfect. And actually, with that, we actually cross out all the requirements for Eigenlayer, and give you guys round of applause. That's a minimum viable product for Eigenlayer, right? It's actually very, very simple, given the programmability of Ethereum and the vast amount of economic assets that live on Ethereum. We can do this very, very simply. However, this is far from a product, right? There's a lot of things that's potentially problematic with this design, and we're going to go through one by one. At the end, we're going to reach the current design we have. All right, the first thing is staker doesn't want to always be operators. I think there's a lot of validating pools in Cosmos. I think it's the same for Ethereum world. Whenever you have proof of stake, delegation becomes very prominent. So let's add in the goal of operators. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the idea is very simple. You have some staker balances that the people who contribute capital to, and you have some operator balances where people, are operating these services, and you can delegate between them. But this smart contract to me just looks really ugly because there are so many different things. It's really hard to explain, and that's what we did. We modularized it. So in this design, we have the top avenue, which stakers interacting with the token pool. You can think of the staker just depositing and withdrawals there. That's all the functionality. On the bottom side, the operator can register and enroll into different AVSs, and AVS here just means any kind of slashing logic that exists. And the operator would enroll into these different slashers, and at the end, the operators operate the entire service. So whenever now you're slashed, instead of slashing the staker directly, you're going to slashing the operator, because operator are the ones who are going to be running these services. And here's the APIs. I'm not going to go over due to time constraint, but feel free to check out the slides and also on the YouTube video later. And the other one question we have is the current design is only depositing one token at a time, right? What if I want to provide economic security with STETH, Rocket Pool ETH, CB ETH, and USDC at the same time, right? How can I do it now? Currently, you can definitely do it. You just have to replicate the same smart contract over and over again for individual things. So instead of doing that, the better way to do this is sort of have a factory format design similar to Uniswap LP mechanism, where the token manager sort of serve as a accounting manager on where sort of token lies. And whenever people deposit token into the system, the token lives in individual pools. And you can think of individual token pools just hold one kind of token. This is STETH, this is Rocket Pool ETH, CB ETH, blah, 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 USDC. Goes on and on. And this is the API for these. Once again, I'm not gonna go super deep into it, but the idea is that these designs are really, really short, right? The token manager is only four lines of code, and the token pool is only 3. The last part I think is gonna be more interesting is around expanding these AVS designs. And this is a problem and why that exists. So let's assume that in this case, a staker is also an operator. And this is a sequence of event that the staker or the operator could do. At time slot 0 is going to commit something malicious, such as double signing, and it's going to withdraw from Eigenlayer right away, right, without doing anything, without giving anyone a chance to submit the fraud proof. He gets his money out, but maybe 1 or 2 seconds later, somebody submits a fraud proof to slash this certain operator. However, the slashing doesn't matter anymore. Why? Because I already got my fund out. So we need to solve this problem. And the solution to this problem is actually very, very simple, and we do not need to change any of the architectural designs. The way we do it is in the delegation manager, we just add an unbounding period. This unbounding period is very similar to proof of stake blockchains, where for you to unstake for any proof of stake, you need to wait a certain time period. And this variable can be totally designed by the AVS designer, or in simplicity, you can just have a fixed number. I think in the current form, we're very open to feedbacks on what do you think is the best one from the developers as well. And we also need to make some adjustment on the token manager. Instead of the ability to withdraw with one function, you now have to queue your withdrawal first. So you demonstrate to the protocol, hey, I'm ready to leave, and then you're going to complete the withdrawal at a later date, right? So before, these 2 functions are just one. Now it's separated into 2 to demonstrate, you need to wait before you can go. The last part is a very small thing. I'm not going to go too deep into it. This is mainly about gas costs saving. So now in the current way, when we try to withdraw, we need to make a lot of cross-contract calls, and that is generally very, very expensive and cost prohibitive for small stakers, since we live on the Ethereum world. So the way we do it is we abstract some sort of slashing cost to the operator or to the people who are submitting these fraud proofs, and we're going to make sure that when honest people withdraw, the cost is going to be a lot lower. And this is the final design of Eigenlayer. You have the staker who are talking mainly to the token manager to deposit and stake into different things. You have the operator who are handling the delegation and enrolling into different AVSs. And lastly, the AVS and the infrastructure developer build out the slashing logic corresponding to his own infrastructure. Right, so now we build this platform around the core 3 pillars of all the agents among each other, so they can coexist and use the blockchain to interact with each other trustlessly. And if you realize you understand how Eigenlayer works, feel free to scan this QR code. It's gonna give you a tweet prompt, and if you can send out a tweet, and I'll greatly appreciate that. Thank you so much for my talk. I will take some questions.
All right. Thanks so much, Kydo.
Of course.
First question.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I was just wondering what the current status of deployment is, whether it's meant to run on L1s, and what the typical proof that you're targeting is. Is it for rollups? Is it arbitrary? And how the intensity of the computation will determine the viability.
I don't think I understand the question, to be exact.
Like, I'm wondering, is it live on L1, where the gas costs are probably pretty high, but also maybe not, depending on like what applications logic is being put into these proofs? Is it for L2 fraud proofs, or is it different type of application logic?
That's a great question. Okay, so basically, what can live in the slasher contract? Can I understand it that way?
Say that one more time.
Can you're sort of asking what is being put into the slasher contract, right? Because the only thing that goes on chain here for Eigenlayer, let me go back a few slides, is for the staker, you only stake it, right? You call some function and that's it. The operator, they only call some function and that's it. There's some sort of accounting happening on rewards that we're currently developing, but for all intents and purposes, there's very limited on-chain interactions among the participants. Right, because most of the code are run off-chain. You're running on Oracle, you're running a proof-of-stake chain, you're running a watcher network, you're running a shared sequencer, yada, yada, yada. There's going to be a lot of different off-chain components that could be always running. The only thing that touches on-chain is going to be mainly the slashing part.
And that's what I want to ask about. So if you go back a slide or two, there's a parameter for proof, ... proof, question mark, something like that. What are the proofs we're actually talking about here in real life? Like, which are the ones being used most? Which are the ones being targeted most? Are they running live, or are these still too expensive to run on mainnet?
Oh, it's not too expensive to run mainnet because these proofs are not going to be happening a lot of times. So it's going to be a crypto economic design. To be frank with you, we do not have the design fleshed out at the moment. But I think right now for a lot of teams, double signing is the most common one.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hi, I have a question. Does Eigenlayer allow for bilateral agreements where the security provider, i.e. Eigenlayer, and the restaking can provide additional services to chains, roll-ups, such as liquidity, investments, etc.? Or is it a sort of like more of a unilateral agreement where the roll-up is benefiting from security and just paying a fee without having that alignment?
I want to first clarify one thing. Like, Eigenlayer is, Eigenlayer and rollup are like sort of very different and not even directly related. So the mental model I want to give you is Eigenlayer is a platform and people build different protocols on top of it. For example, EigenDA is the first protocol we build on top of Eigenlayer and provides DA services. Espresso is a shared sequencer that provides DA and sequencing for rollups. Right? And rollups could be the end customer of these different services we provide, but Eigenlayer as a whole is a very generalized, you can think of the abstraction of what staking is and also abstraction of providing economic security.
Okay. So, in that context, do these services like also include alignment from the underlying layer with the applications, or are the applications simply sort of paying for a service?
Yeah, I think going back to the liquidity question, I think that's basically up to the design of each individual AVS, right? If you want to, be able to have a native restaking or native staking solution on top of your protocol once people deposit here, then you can. But I think the risk is, very, very nuanced, and I'm not sure that anyone right now is actively, thinking all these problems through at the moment. So I think that's a great question. That's totally possible. I think there's going to be more risk involved, and we'd love to have more open discussion about this as well.
Yeah. Initially, I think in one of the first diagrams, we were showing that this was going to be used to secure some dApps. I just wanted to understand exactly how. Let's say I have a dApp. How would I secure my dApp using this architecture?
You do not, once again, right? If you're a dApp, you do not need to use Eigenlayer directly. You could be, for example, if you want to launch a Cosmos chain and you don't want to have your Tokyo issuing locked in for the next 10 years right away, then you can use, and you don't want to be super, you don't want to be centralized through a proof of authority mechanism, for regulatory, or you just, for whatever other reasons, you can use economic security, without bootstrapping your own thing. So that's like one way I would say. The other way is for example, if you're a dApp developer, you want to rely on bridges, oracles, finality, rigor assistant, all these other services. The problem now is you don't want to rely on any of them because they're not really secure, their trust assumption is unsure, and their economic robustness is also unclear. So right in that world, very limited dApp developers want to rely on external ABSs or infrastructures. Therefore, I think we do not see that a lot currently. But I think in the future, once we have much more secure middlewares, ABSs, these infrastructures, I think a lot more dApps will be possible.
All right, we got time for one more quick question. All right, I'll ask one then. Kydo, how do you think about interoperability as it relates to Eigenlayer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question as well. I do a lot of interop stuff outside Eigenlayer, but I think with regard to Eigenlayer, there's a few things that are really interesting. And number one is just, instead of doing your own bridge with your own token, you can just think about, okay, how do I build the best amount of tech without raising a lot of money and having convincing people to buy my tokens, staking to my network, yada, yada, yada. I just focus on the technical part, and I let the economic security, these stakers to decide how much they want to provide into my network. If my tech is good, it's great. I can have some tech that just out there functions without worrying about these different things. And that's one thing. And the other thing is I think just having safety checks around each other. So I think ZK is a great technology. I still think it's very, very early for any crypto system. We have seen in the past, there's a lot of things that could break in the first 10 years of its lifespan. And the moment of the speed of innovation that we currently see, it will be great, for economic security and ZK cryptographic security to, complement each other, right? There's check and balances among each other, so we can see slowly how that landscape will play out. So those are the things I'm really, really interested.
Awesome. I guess a bit more of a specific question, and you can keep it general, but I'm curious what perspective you've formed, if any, around IBC.
That's a great question. I'm always believer that IBC will eat the world. I think the difficulty part is connecting, and like for example, Relay is a great one. Who are the relays? Why do I trust them? Do I need to launch a relay with my own token, another proof of stake chain, so I coordinate these behaviors? I think you can launch a relay on Eigenlayer relatively very easily without thinking about these different problems. So I think very bullish on IBC. I think there's still some technical challenges we're going to see and we're going to solve probably in the coming years. Very excited.
Awesome. Thank you again, Kydo. Let's give another round of applause.
Thank you for having me.